Hello, hello, hello again. We are back with our Indiana Jones Temple of Doom episode. I gotta tell you, this is gonna be a good one.
Oh
And
yeah.
if not, I don't want to hear no shit from the internet. It's gonna be good,
Oh yeah.
regardless. Hello, Scott.
Hey, welcome back, June.
Hello, Joe AP.
What's up, June? Hey,
I'm
Scott.
Come on, Joe.
Sorry,
I'm
June, I cut you off.
it's okay. You always cut me off. I'm used to it, you bastard. Uh I am so happy to be back with you guys, and in particular for this episode, because I think it's going to be good. It was a okay. You know what? I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to give critiques yet, because I think we're going to have a lot to unpack with this one.
Oh yeah.
I've said that before. It's going to be very true with this episode. Let's just jump right in,
Jump right
because
in.
we're going to have a lot to talk about. So, if you don't mind, I'm just going to start out by saying that I took a cue from our friend Joe AP, and I watched this movie at my job.
Nice.
The way
I'm
God,
gonna
the way
get my ass
Spielberg
fired.
intended.
Yes, the way God intended,
His
you know?
Spielberg wanted you to watch it on your phone at your job. That's what he was
Exactly.
thinking when he was framing every shot.
And
No,
earn my salary while I'm doing it.
I actually bring my iPad and I lay it flat. So my work, I had a table that I can stand up and sit down. So when I stood up, no one would know if I had an iPad turn on. I just had my earphone on and watch movie on my iPad. I am gonna get fired.
The perfect crime. The perfect crime. Yes.
Mhm.
So I watched this movie at work, and I actually watched it on YouTube, believe it or not. And the
What?
reason I found, yes, I know you're gonna have to, because you would assume that we would have to, if any movie, we would probably have to pay for any Indiana Jones movie, right?
Well, Joe
Mhm.
paid for it, so yeah, he does assume.
Well, fooey on you, my friend,
Scott will not
because
share the accounts.
there's a certain channel on YouTube. I'm not gonna mention the name unless,
Mm.
if any of the listeners want to request, I'll let them know. But it's not a hidden secret. I just stumbled upon it on YouTube, and they have movies on this, but it's in pieces. It's in
Oh.
order. So it just goes from one scene to the next. What was interesting about watching this movie in that manner, in the first half of this episode, I had mentioned something to the effect about George Lucas being a big fan of the first movie serials.
Mhm.
And I'll briefly describe what those were. In the dawn of the movie theater age, it wasn't so much full length feature films. TV wasn't a grand thing back then. So most of the people got their video kicks by going to the theater, and they would watch serials. And imagine, if you will, sitcoms, but in the movie theater, right? Like half hour. And these would be like 10, 15, 20-minute segments, and you'd have to go each week to get the next part of the story.
Mhm.
So that's what inspired Lucas, I believe, from what I've read, to do this movie, Indiana Jones, because a lot of these serials were they had all kinds of genres, right? And one of them was adventure, and they would have these very Indiana Jones esque type of characters that would get into these situations, and you get a 15-minute episode, and you'd have to come back next week to find out what happens, and each segment would end in some kind of cliffhanger, right?
Yep.
Mm.
So, in watching this movie on YouTube in sections that way, it had that effect,
Uh,
and it worked very
that's
well
cool.
for this movie, and it made me enjoy it that much more. I was like, holy mackerel, this must have been what it was kind of like in like 19 whatever.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool. But yes, I did find it for free on YouTube, and that was the main point of that story.
Oh, well, I've watched all first three movies in the last 2 days. I
Oh
watched
wow.
Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, and Last Crusade in order. And my overall impression of these movies is they were written like that. Like you said, they were very much a bunch of scenes to me. They were, it seemed like Spielberg and Lucas had planned out, like, okay, I really want to do this stunt. Oh, I think, yeah, Indy needs to go through the windshield and then to the grate of the truck, and then climb underneath it. It's, to me, it feels
Hmm.
like they based the movie around all these different, like, action pieces they wanted to do. and then they kind of like, you know, write the story around it to get it to work. It kind of feels like there's all these big scenes, and all three movies are like that. They're all just
Yes.
like, you know,
So you're
one
saying
big action piece to the next.
the movie is based on like plots, like scene. So the story
Yeah, I
kind
think
of
I have a
built.
feeling when they wrote this, well, you know, neither of them, the story is inspired by it. I think each one is written by somebody different, but I think Spielberg and Lucas had ideas like they wanted to do, like oh, I have to do this scene. This scene would be so cool, and then somebody else comes in and writes it and tries to figure out how to make all these scenes go together.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, Scott, you're right on the money. The little bit of research that I did, I caught also on YouTube, I caught a little, I guess, sort of a behind the scenes for this particular movie. They had one for each of the Indiana
Yeah,
Jones movies, but in particular for this movie, and that's one of the things that George Lucas said, in particular with this film, the sequel, is that they had a lot of leftover scenes from the first movie that they didn't get to do that they really wanted to.
yeah,
A case in point, the scene with in the mines
yeah. Okay,
with the whole
yeah,
which was akin to like a roller coaster scene almost.
yeah,
But that was one of the scenes that Lucas really loved, and they didn't get a chance to incorporate it into the first film.
yeah,
So they had quite a few scenes in this movie. You are absolutely right on point that they built the movie around these scenes.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, come on. The plot for this movie is there's not a lot of plot to this movie.
No.
He's got to go get some stone to save the
I mean,
village, and I mean
well, that's the
that's pretty
plot to
much the
all of
plot.
these.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's about it.
But
Yeah.
isn't that like the same? You know, coming from comics, June. That's how it works too. Like you kind of write
Mhm.
a comics based on the graphic, like that's brings the flavor out of the comics, the
Yeah,
movie, right?
yeah. A lot of comics are written that way. I mean, speaking of the comics, when I was a kid, I got the comic book adaptation for these movies,
Mhm.
and it worked perfectly. It was like nothing to translate, really.
Right.
You're absolutely right on point with that, Joe. That's a
Yeah.
very
I
good
think they
point.
do the Mission Impossible movies, like the last couple.
Mhm.
I saw an interview with the director, and it was the same thing. Like Tom Cruise is like, I have this idea for a stunt. I want to do this stunt, and they would come up with all these different crazy stunts they want to do, and they didn't have a script. They're like, okay, well, we want to do this, want to do that, and then they would go back and they would write the script to fit so they could get those stunts into it. You know, the
Yeah.
plot was the secondary for them. It was always about, you know, these big wild stunts that Tom Cruise wants to do.
It's a
Mhm.
formula that works for this type of film, for these type of plots,
Right.
right? Like you said, there's very little work involved as far as the plot. It's very simple premise, but it works.
Mhm.
It's a kind of it's a visual feast. It's an on keeping the audience on the edge of their seats,
Yeah, I'm sure
and it's
someone was like, you know, we should put a kid in this movie too. And then all of a sudden there's short rounds in the movie.
now we're on the subject of short round. I wanted to tell that Joe AP, your performance as short round in this movie was fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, Joe, can you give us a
And
line from the movie? Give us a good short round line.
Okie dokie.
Okie dokie. Okie dokie, Mr. Jones. You got to say Mr. Jones all the time.
It's not Mr. Jones, it's Dr. Jones.
Dr. Jones.
Dr.
Oh,
Jones,
you're
you're
right.
right. I
Yeah.
just want
No,
you to know.
that's perfect.
Let me tell you something. That kid was the best thing in this movie.
He
Hey,
absolutely was.
he saved Dr. Jones many times.
Yes.
I was so angry that he was not in the next movie. I don't
Yes.
understand why. And so I even Googled what happened to Short Round. And
Mhm.
I guess it was an Indiana Jones comic book, June, where he comes back in, and apparently Indiana brings him back to the US, puts him in boarding school. And then there was one comic where he comes back and he saves him at one point, but that's the only other time you ever have heard from him again.
Well, I gotta track that issue down.
Yeah.
You're right. They dropped the ball by not including
Oh,
him in the
he
third
absolutely
one.
should have been in the next movie.
was
He was a
brilliant.
star.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was. You're
Very
right,
good
Joe.
actor. He's a very good actor.
You know, I had this very sentimental moments when they hug, and it
Uh-huh.
reminds me in that at the just recently when he accepted the award,
Oh yeah, you saw that.
the hug that he gave
Mm.
Indiana Jones in the movie. I was a little bit touched by it, like just
Well, have you seen the picture of him? So he hadn't seen Harrison Ford since they shot the movie.
Really?
And when he was on the award train circuit, like going around, but pre-Oscars, he actually ran into him, and Harrison Ford like called him over here, like, "Hey kid," and he called him over and gave him a big hug and told him how proud he was. And there's a
Wow.
picture online of them together, and it's almost like the picture is almost like in the movie.
We need
You
to
know, he
That's
has
insert
this
that
huge
clip
smile on his face.
in podcasts.
You
Yeah.
you really got that feel that, well, I mean, in that little behind the scenes thing that I mentioned earlier, they kind of showed how they bonded during the
Yeah.
making of this film, and they showed behind the scene moments with them. And one of them was Harrison Ford teaching him how to use the whip.
Oh,
And
really?
it was so endearing. It really
Yeah.
was. Like, you could
They had
tell
better
they
chemistry
really
than him and
enjoyed.
Kate. Kate Capshaw and Harrison Ford do not have good chemistry.
Well,
The
she was the
short
weakest
round
point
and
of the movie.
oh my, she was the worst.
But you know that she was my crush in this movie when I
No,
was
no, no,
young.
no.
Really?
Don't get me wrong. She's a very beautiful woman, and
She
also
was
not.
also Spielberg's girlfriend at the time too,
I'm sure that helps.
Oh.
and future wife.
But she's not a bad actress either. It's just that
Eh.
the way her role was written, I think, didn't do. I
Probably.
think
Yeah, she was
anybody in
annoying.
that role, yeah, she was there to be annoying. It seems.
It was very glaring to me because I watched the first one, Raiders, right before it, and Karen Allen in the first one is
Yes.
amazing.
She
She's
was.
really,
Oh my God.
really good in it.
It was like not okay. So again, going back to that YouTube channel I mentioned before,
Yeah.
I started by watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I got halfway in, and I said to myself, let me watch Temple of Doom. I should just watch Temple of Doom. But I was like, I forgot how good she was in
really
that
good in it.
role. She was kick-ass. She was not like the
She was
damsel in
complex. She had
distress.
great physical humor. She
Yes.
was funny. She was sexy. She was smart. She was everything. And yeah, then go to Kate Capshaw's character, and
It
she's
was
just crying and moaning the whole
Well,
film.
the movie's
screaming the whole movie.
Yeah.
Jesus
Fighting with
Christ.
elephants. Okay, I think we should start actually going into this movie.
Yeah. Let's dive into the plot, man. Does anybody want to start? Anybody?
Well, this is your movie, June, so I believe you should start.
I knew you were gonna do
before
that.
you start, June.
Yes.
Very good choice. I very liked it. It
Oh,
was
yeah, no, excellent.
Adventure.
Really, you should thank Scott. Scott chose it for me. It was his idea that we
really
should get
that
into some-
asshole.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we're doing this to coincide with the release of the new movie that will be coming out this week, and so we want to make sure that we're doing our part to help the release of this new movie. We got to help get people in the theater to go see this, Joe. That's our job.
The Temple of Doom.
Joe, that's
actually
bullshit.
my
Scott,
favorite.
Joe, that's bullshit. Scott called me up before and he was like, "Look, motherfucker, we're doing
You're
Indiana
doing
Jones
this? I
with
don't
you,
give a
like it
shit
or
what you
not.
say."
This is my podcast, and we are doing."
Did he
Temple
texted
of
you or
Doom.
he called you?
No, he called me.
Yeah,
Oh.
straight. Yeah.
He FaceTimed me.
Yeah, FaceTime. I'm like, listen here, June.
And he was in the
That's
middle
right.
of doing his OnlyFans.
Take a picture of his feet.
I'm only playing on it. He doesn't have one yet.
He will
that
now.
Joey
guys-
P
that
does.
you know
Joey
of.
P has.
Follow my feet.
But let's get into the plot.